The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the dusty depot in Colfax, New Mexico territory, and Eleanor Katherine Murphy stepped down onto the wooden platform wearing a dress so threadbare that the harsh afternoon sun shone straight through the fabric in places. The year was 1878, and she had traveled nearly 2,000 miles from Boston with nothing but the tattered clothes on her back, a single worn carpetbag, and a letter of agreement with a rancher named Quinton Peter Hayes who needed a wife. The other passengers averted their eyes from her shabby appearance, their whispers following her like tumbleweeds in the desert wind. But Eleanor held her head high despite the humiliation burning in her cheeks. She had not always been poor. Her father had owned a modest dry goods store in Boston until his sudden death 3 years ago, leaving Eleanor and her mother with nothing but debts. Her mother had passed the following winter from consumption, and Eleanor found herself alone in a boarding house where the landlady grew increasingly hostile about unpaid rent. When she saw the advertisement seeking a bride for a prosperous New Mexico rancher, she had written immediately, pouring her heart into the letter and being honest about her circumstances. Mr. Hayes had written back within 2 weeks, his words kind and understanding, saying that character mattered more than wealth and that he looked forward to meeting her. He had sent money for the train fare and the stage coach from Santa Fe, enough to get her there but not enough to buy new clothes. Now, standing in the blazing heat of the New Mexico afternoon, Eleanor scanned the faces of the men gathered near the depot. Most were rough-looking, their faces weathered by sun and wind, their clothes dusty from hard work. She clutched her letter tightly, wondering which of these stern-faced strangers was the man she had agreed to marry. Miss Eleanor Murphy. A deep voice spoke behind her, and she turned quickly. The man standing there was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a lean, muscular build that spoke of years of physical labor. His face was sun-bronzed and handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and eyes the color of dark honey. His hair was thick and dark brown, slightly too long, curling at his collar. He wore clean work clothes, a well-maintained hat and boots that had seen use but were of good quality. He held his hat in his hands respectfully, and his expression was one of concern rather than judgment as he took in her appearance. "Yes, I am Eleanor Murphy," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Are you Mr. Hayes?" "I am, Quinton Hayes. Most folks call me Quinn." He extended his hand, and she shook it, feeling the calluses that spoke of honest work. His grip was gentle despite his obvious strength. His eyes traveled over her worn dress, the holes in her shawl, the scuffed and broken shoes on her feet, and she saw his jaw tighten with what looked like anger, though she sensed it was not directed at her. "I apologize for my appearance," Eleanor began, her voice wavering slightly. "The journey was difficult, and I had no funds for proper traveling clothes. I assure you I am a hard worker and I can cook and sew and keep house. I will not be a burden to you." Quinn's expression softened immediately. "Miss Murphy, you have nothing to apologize for, nothing at all. Let me get your trunk and we will get you settled." "I have no trunk, Mr. Hayes, only this." She held up the small, battered carpetbag that contained everything she owned. 2 threadbare chemises, a pair of worn stockings with darns, a hairbrush with several missing bristles, her mother's small silver locket, and a few other small necessities. Something flickered in Quinn's eyes, a mix of sadness and determination. He took the carpetbag from her gently. "My wagon is just over here. It is about an hour's ride to the ranch. Are you hungry? Thirsty? The hotel has a dining room." Eleanor's stomach was gnawing at her backbone. She had eaten very little on the journey, stretching her meager funds as far as possible. but she could not bear to embarrass herself further by admitting her hunger. "I am fine, thank you." Quinn studied her face for a long moment, and she had the feeling he could see right through her polite lie. "The trail gets dusty. I insist we at least get you some water and perhaps some bread and cheese for the journey. I am hungry myself." He said it so kindly, giving her a way to accept without feeling like charity, that Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The hotel dining room was modest but clean, and Quinn guided her to a corner table away from curious stares. He ordered water, coffee, sandwiches, and apple pie, and when the food came, Eleanor had to force herself not to fall upon it like a starving animal. She ate slowly, carefully, trying to maintain her dignity even as her empty stomach cramped with relief. Quinn ate his own meal, talking easily about the ranch, the weather, the cattle market, anything to put her at ease. "I have 500 head of cattle," he said. "Good grazing land with a year-round creek. The house is solid, built of adobe in the Spanish style with thick walls that keep it cool in summer and warm in winter. I have 3 men who work for me, good honest fellows who live in the bunkhouse. They are respectful and will give you no trouble. My nearest neighbor is Tom Wilson, who has the spread to the east. He is a good man, married to a fine woman named Sarah. I think you and Sarah will get along well." Eleanor listened, grateful for his easy conversation. "How long have you had the ranch?" "10 years. I came out here after the war. Worked as a cowhand for a few years, saved my money and bought the land from a man who wanted to go back east. It has been hard work building it up, but I love this land. It gets in your blood, this country. The mountains, the sky, the freedom of it all." He paused, looking at her directly. "I will be honest with you, Miss Murphy. I am not a fancy man. I work hard, my hands are rough, and I spend most of my days in the saddle or mending fences or doing the 1,000 things a ranch requires. But I am honest, I do not drink to excess, I do not gamble, and I will treat you with respect. I am looking for a partner, someone to share this life with, to build something together." "Why did you advertise for a bride?" Eleanor asked. "Surely there are women here in New Mexico who would be happy to marry you." Quinn smiled slightly, a bit of color rising in his cheeks. "The ranch keeps me busy. I do not get to town often, and when I do, I am not much for social gatherings. My friend kept telling me I needed a wife, that a man should not live alone. Finally, I took his advice and placed the advertisement. I received several letters, but yours was different. You were honest about your circumstances. You did not try to pretend to be something you were not, and your words had intelligence and humor. I liked that." Eleanor felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I will work hard to be a good wife to you." Quinn reached across the table and gently covered her hand with his. His touch was warm and gentle. "I have no doubt of that, but I want you to understand something. This is a partnership. You are not a servant. You are going to be my wife, my equal, and I take care of what is mine." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. She nodded, unable to look away from his steady gaze. After they finished eating, Quinn helped her into his wagon, a sturdy vehicle pulled by 2 strong horses. Eleanor settled onto the bench seat, very aware of his solid presence beside her as he took up the reins. They rolled out of Colfax, heading west into open country that seemed to stretch forever under an impossibly blue sky. The land was beautiful in a stark, dramatic way. Red mesas rose in the distance, and the scrubland was dotted with pinyon pines and juniper. The air smelled of sage and dust, and something clean and wild that Eleanor had never experienced in Boston. Despite her exhaustion and anxiety, she felt something in her chest expand, a sense of possibility she had not felt in years. Quinn pointed out landmarks as they traveled. The distant mountains, the creek that bordered his property, the road that led to the Wilson Ranch. He talked about the cattle, the horses he was breeding, his plans to expand the house. Eleanor listened, asking questions, genuinely interested. She found herself relaxing in his presence. He was an easy man to be with, his manner calm and steady. As they crested a rise, Quinn pulled the horses to a stop. "There," he said, pointing. "That is home." Eleanor looked down into a valley cradled between rolling hills. A creek glinted silver in the afternoon sun, lined with cottonwood trees. The ranch house sat on a slight elevation, a long, low adobe structure with a covered porch that wrapped around two sides. There were several outbuildings, corrals with horses, and cattle grazing in the distance. It was more beautiful than she had imagined, and tears suddenly filled her eyes. "It is wonderful," she whispered. Quinn smiled, real pleasure lighting his face. "I am glad you think so. Come on, let us get you home." Home. The word resonated in Eleanor's heart as they descended into the valley. She had not had a real home in so long. As they pulled up in front of the house, 3 men emerged from the barn. They removed their hats respectfully as Quinn helped Eleanor down from the wagon. "Boys, this is Miss Eleanor Murphy, my bride-to-be. Miss Murphy, these are my men. That is Carlos Martinez. He has been with me from the beginning. Next to him is Samuel Tucker, we call him Sam. And that tall fellow is Joseph Parker." Each man nodded politely. Carlos was older, perhaps 50, with a weathered face and kind dark eyes. Sam was younger, maybe 30, with red hair and a friendly smile. Joseph was indeed tall, lanky, and quiet, with serious gray eyes. "Pleased to meet you, madam," Carlos said. "The boss has been looking forward to your arrival." "Thank you," Eleanor said. "I am pleased to meet you all." Quinn picked up her carpet bag. "I will show you the house. Boys, we will see you at supper." The men dispersed back toward the barn, and Quinn led Eleanor up the porch steps. The door opened into a large main room with a fireplace, comfortable furniture, and windows that let in plenty of light. The floors were wood, worn but clean, and colorful woven rugs added warmth. To the left was a kitchen with a big iron stove, a long work table, and open shelves holding dishes and supplies. To the right, a hallway led to what Eleanor assumed were bedrooms. "The house has 4 bedrooms," Quinn said, leading her down the hall. "This one is mine. This one can be yours, at least until we marry properly. I figure we should get to know each other a bit first. The wedding can be whenever you are ready. There is no rush." Eleanor looked into the room he indicated. It was simply furnished with a bed, a dresser, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a chair by the window. Clean white curtains hung at the window, and a colorful quilt covered the bed. It was spotlessly clean and more than she had dared hope for. "It is perfect," she said softly. Quinn set her carpet bag on the bed. "I will let you rest and freshen up. There is water in the pitcher and there are towels in the dresser. Take your time. Supper will not be for a few hours." Eleanor touched his arm impulsively. "Mr. Hayes, Quinn, thank you. You have been so kind." He looked down at her, his expression serious. "You deserve kindness, Eleanor. You deserve much more than that, and I aim to see that you get it." He hesitated, then continued, "I need to go into town tomorrow for supplies. I want you to come with me. There is a dressmaker there, Mrs. Henderson. She is skilled and fair-priced. I want you to get some proper clothes." Eleanor's cheeks flamed. "I cannot accept such a gift. It would not be proper. You are going to be my wife. Nothing improper about a man seeing that his wife is well dressed. Besides, you need more than one dress, Eleanor. That is just practical. But I have no money to repay you." Quinn stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "I am not asking for repayment. I am asking you to let me do this, please." The sincerity in his eyes undid her. Eleanor felt tears spill over, and she quickly wiped them away. "I am sorry. I do not mean to be emotional. It has just been so hard for so long, and you are being so generous, and I do not know how to accept it without feeling like I am taking advantage." "You are not taking advantage. You are accepting what you deserve." Quinn pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. "Rest now. I will knock on your door before supper." After he left, closing the door quietly behind him, Eleanor sank onto the bed and let herself cry. She cried for her parents, for the years of struggle, for the shame of arriving in rags. But she also cried with relief, because for the first time in so long she felt safe. Quinn Hayes was a good man. She could see it in his eyes, hear it in his voice, feel it in every gentle gesture. After her tears subsided, Eleanor washed her face in the basin, grateful for the cool water. She unpacked her meager belongings, hanging her 2 extra chemises in the wardrobe and arranging her few items on the dresser. Her mother's locket she kept in her hand for a long moment, remembering the woman who had worn it. "I think I will be all right, Mama," she whispered. "I think I found a good man." She lay down on the bed, intending to rest for just a few minutes, but exhaustion claimed her and she fell into a deep sleep. When she woke, the light through the window had turned golden, and someone was knocking softly on the door. Eleanor sat up, disoriented, her dress wrinkled from sleep. "Miss Murphy, supper is ready," Quinn called through the door. "I will be right there," Eleanor called back. She quickly smoothed her hair and her dress, wishing desperately that she had something better to wear. In the kitchen, Quinn had set the long table with plates and utensils. A pot of stew sat in the center, along with fresh bread, butter, and a bowl of stewed apples. The 3 ranch hands were already seated, having cleaned up after their day's work. "I hope you do not mind eating with the men," Quinn said. "We generally all eat together in the evenings. It is easier than cooking separately." "I do not mind at all," Eleanor said. In fact, she appreciated it. The idea of eating alone with Quinn every evening, still strangers to each other, would have been awkward. The meal was simple but delicious, and the conversation was easy. The men were respectful but friendly, telling stories about the day's work, asking Eleanor polite questions about her journey. She found herself laughing at Sam's humorous tale about a stubborn calf and relaxing into the warmth of the group. After supper, Eleanor insisted on washing the dishes. Quinn started to protest, but she gave him a firm look. "I am not a guest, Mr. Hayes. I am going to be your wife. Let me contribute." He smiled and nodded. "All right, but let me dry." They worked side by side at the big kitchen sink, and Eleanor found herself very aware of his presence. He was a large man, but his movements were careful and controlled. He smelled of soap and leather and something else, something masculine and appealing. When their hands accidentally touched in the dishwater, she felt a little jolt of awareness that made her cheeks warm. "Tell me about Boston," Quinn said as they worked. "What was it like growing up there?" Eleanor talked about the city, the narrow streets, the harbor, the bustle and noise. She told him about her father's store, how she had helped him with the accounts and enjoyed talking to the customers. She talked about her mother, her gentleness and her strength. She did not dwell on the hard times after their deaths, but Quinn seemed to understand without her saying much. "You have had a rough few years," he said quietly. "Yes, but I am here now and this is a fresh start." "I am grateful for that." After the dishes were done, they sat on the porch in the cooling evening air. The sky was ablaze with colors, purple and orange and gold, and the first stars were beginning to appear. The air smelled of sage and grass, and somewhere in the distance a coyote howled. "I have never seen so many stars," Eleanor said in wonder. "In Boston, you can barely see them through the smoke and the lights." "Wait until full dark," Quinn said. "Out here, The night sky is something to see." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Quinn said, "I meant what I said about going to town tomorrow. I want you to get some proper clothes. Please do not argue with me about this." Eleanor looked down at her worn dress, visible even in the dimming light. Pride warred with practicality. Finally, she said quietly, "This dress was my best one 5 years ago. It was pretty then, a nice blue cotton with white piping. I wore it to church on Sundays and felt quite fine in it. But I have worn it so much, washed it so many times, mended it until there is more darning than original fabric. The same with everything I own. I am ashamed to be seen in public like this, but I have no choice." Quinn was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You have nothing to be ashamed of. You survived. You did what you had to do. That takes strength, Eleanor, more strength than most people have. But you do not have to just survive anymore. I want to take care of you. I want to give you nice things. Not because you need them to be worthy, but because you are worthy and you deserve them. Do you understand?" Eleanor felt tears sting her eyes again. "I am not used to anyone caring about what I deserve." "Well, get used to it." His voice was gentle but determined. "Starting tomorrow." That night, lying in her comfortable bed, Eleanor stared up at the ceiling and marveled at how much her life had changed in a single day. This morning she had been terrified, arriving in a strange place to marry a man she had never met, ashamed of her poverty and afraid of his reaction. Tonight she felt safe and valued. Quinn Hayes was everything his letters had suggested and more. He was kind and thoughtful, strong but gentle, and when he looked at her, she felt like she mattered. It had been so long since anyone had made her feel that way. She thought about his hands, strong and calloused, carefully drying the dishes. She thought about his voice, deep and warm, telling her she deserved good things. She thought about his eyes, the way they watched her with concern, and something else, something that made her heart beat faster. It was too soon to call it attraction, too soon to think about feelings beyond gratitude and relief. But there was something there, a spark of possibility that made her smile in the darkness. The next morning, Eleanor woke to golden sunlight streaming through her window and the smell of coffee and bacon. She dressed quickly in her only other dress, which was in even worse condition than the one she had traveled in, and went to the kitchen. Quinn was at the stove, cooking breakfast. He had already changed from what he must have worn for early morning chores into clean clothes, clearly having made an effort for the trip to town. He looked up and smiled when she entered. "Good morning. I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in months," Eleanor admitted. "The bed is very comfortable." "Good. Sit down, breakfast is almost ready." The ranch hands had apparently already eaten and gone about their work. Quinn served eggs, bacon, biscuits with honey and strong coffee. Eleanor ate hungrily, marveling at the abundance after so many months of barely enough. "We will leave for town after breakfast," Quinn said. "It is about a 2-hour drive in the wagon. Mrs. Henderson, the dressmaker, is expecting us. I sent Carlos into town yesterday afternoon to let her know we would be coming this morning." Eleanor blinked. "You planned this before you even met me?" "I planned to make sure my bride had what she needed, yes." Quinn met her eyes steadily. "I was prepared for whatever circumstances you arrived in, Eleanor. Your letter was honest about your situation. I respect that honesty, and I was determined to help however I could. But you could not have known how bad things were." "No," he admitted. "But seeing you step off that stagecoach yesterday, so proud despite everything, your dress hanging in tatters but your head held high, I made a promise to myself. I would do everything in my power to give you the life you deserved, starting with clothes that do not have more holes than a sieve." Despite herself, Eleanor laughed. "It is that bad, is it not?" "It is that bad," Quinn agreed, but his smile was kind. "Come on, let us go fix it." The ride to Colfax was pleasant in the cool morning air. Quinn kept up an easy conversation, pointing out wildlife and telling her stories about the area. Eleanor learned that he was originally from Missouri, that he had fought in the war for the Union, that he had come west afterward because he could not settle back into farming after everything he had seen. He had worked hard, saved his money, and bought the ranch when the opportunity arose. He clearly loved the land and the work, and his pride in what he had built was evident. In turn, Eleanor told him more about her life in Boston. She talked about helping her father in the store, her love of reading, her skill with numbers. She admitted that she had tried to find work after her mother died, but that jobs for women were scarce and poorly paid. She had worked for a time in a factory, sewing shirts for 14 hours a day, but the wages were barely enough to pay for her tiny room and food. When that factory closed, she had been desperate, which was when she saw Quinn's advertisement. "I am good at managing a household," she said. "My mother taught me to cook and preserve food, to make soap and candles, to keep accounts. I am a hard worker. I want you to know that I will earn my place here." Quinn glanced at her, his expression serious. "You already have a place here, Eleanor. You do not have to earn it, but I am glad to know your skills. Running a ranch house is a lot of work, and I will appreciate your help. The men and I have been making do, but it will be good to have someone who knows what they are doing." In Colfax, Quinn drove straight to a neat little house on the edge of town with a sign that read, "Mrs. Henderson, Dressmaking and Alterations." A plump, cheerful woman with gray hair answered the door. "Mr. Hayes, good morning. And you must be Miss Murphy. Come in, come in." Mrs. Henderson ushered them into a front room that served as her shop. Bolts of fabric lined the walls and a dress form stood in the corner. "Now, Mr. Hayes told me that you need a complete wardrobe. Let me have a look at you, dear." Eleanor stood nervously as Mrs. Henderson circled her, assessing her with a professional eye. The older woman clucked her tongue sympathetically. "You poor thing, you have been through hard times, have you not? Well, we will fix you right up. Mr. Hayes, you can wait in the parlor. This will take some time." For the next hour, Eleanor was measured, draped with fabrics, and consulted about styles and colors. Mrs. Henderson was kind and efficient, never once making Eleanor feel ashamed of her circumstances. She showed Eleanor bolts of calico, gingham, muslin, and even some finer fabrics, wool and silk. "For everyday work, you will want sturdy cotton," Mrs. Henderson said. "Calico wears well and washes nicely. I am thinking 3 or 4 day dresses in different patterns. Then you will want at least 2 nicer dresses for town and church, and a wool dress for winter. Plus, of course, proper undergarments, nightgowns, a wrapper, a good cloak, and a Sunday coat. Shoes, stockings, gloves, bonnets." Eleanor's head was spinning. "That is so much. That is what you need, dear. Mr. Hayes was very clear that you were to have everything necessary. But the cost?" Mrs. Henderson smiled. "Mr. Hayes is a good man and a good customer. He has already made arrangements. Now, what colors do you like?" Despite her discomfort with the expense, Eleanor could not help but be drawn into the process. It had been so long since she had anything new, anything pretty. Mrs. Henderson guided her toward blues and greens that complemented her eyes and hair, a soft rose that brought color to her cheeks, and a deep burgundy for a finer dress. "I can have 2 of the day dresses ready in 3 days, Mrs. Henderson said. "The rest will take about 2 weeks. In the meantime, I have a ready-made dress that should fit you with minimal alteration. Let me fetch it." She returned with a simple but pretty dress in a soft green sprigged cotton. "Try this in the back room, dear." Eleanor changed quickly, marveling at the feel of new fabric against her skin, cloth that was not thin from wear or rough from too much washing. The dress fit well, a bit loose in the waist but otherwise fine. When she emerged, Mrs. Henderson clapped her hands. Perfect. I will just take it in a tiny bit here, and you can wear it home today. Mr. Hayes will want to see you looking pretty. Back in the parlor, Quinn stood when they entered. His eyes widened when he saw Eleanor in the new dress, and something warm and appreciative lit his face. You look beautiful, he said simply. Eleanor felt her cheeks flush with pleasure. Thank you. Mrs. Henderson has been so helpful. I will just make those small alterations, Mrs. Henderson said. It will only take about 20 minutes. Why do not you two go have some lunch at the hotel, and the dress will be ready when you return? Quinn offered Eleanor his arm. That sounds like a fine idea. Miss Murphy, will you join me for lunch? Eleanor placed her hand in the crook of his elbow, feeling the solid strength of his arm beneath her fingers. I would be delighted, Mr. Hayes. Walking down the main street of Colfax on Quinn's arm, Eleanor felt like a different person than the woman who had arrived yesterday. People they passed nodded politely, and Eleanor saw several women give her approving looks. Quinn greeted people by name, and Eleanor could tell he was respected in the community. At the hotel dining room, Quinn ordered a nice lunch for them both, and they talked easily over the meal. Eleanor found herself relaxing more and more in his company. He was intelligent and well-spoken, with a dry sense of humor that made her laugh. He asked her opinions on things and listened carefully to her answers, treating her thoughts as valuable. I have been thinking, Quinn said over coffee. About the wedding. I told you there was no rush, and I meant that. But I also do not want to put you in an awkward position living in my house without the protection of marriage, so I am wondering what you think would be best. Eleanor considered. How long would you like to wait? As long as you need to feel comfortable. A week, 2 weeks, a month. I do not need a month, Eleanor said. We have been corresponding for weeks. I feel like I know you already, at least somewhat. And being in your home, seeing how you live, talking with you, I feel comfortable with you. If you are ready, I would be willing to marry within a week or two. Quinn reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb rubbing gently over her knuckles. I am ready. I was ready the moment I saw you step off that stagecoach looking so brave. How about 2 weeks from today? That will give you time to get some of your new clothes to settle in, to be sure. And it will give me time to make arrangements, invite the neighbors, make it a proper celebration. Eleanor squeezed his hand, feeling a flutter of nerves and excitement. 2 weeks sounds perfect. They returned to Mrs. Henderson's shop to find the dress altered and wrapped in brown paper. Quinn also insisted on buying Eleanor a new bonnet, gloves, and sturdy shoes to replace her worn-out ones. Eleanor put on the new shoes immediately, sighing with relief as her feet were finally comfortable and protected. On the drive home, Quinn said quietly, I want you to understand something, Eleanor. When we marry, you will be my full partner. I do not expect you to be a servant. Yes, you will cook and keep house because that is how we divide the labor and it makes sense. But your opinion matters. Your wants and needs matter. If there is something you want for the house, something you need, you only have to ask. The ranch is doing well. We are not rich, but we are comfortable, and I want you to be comfortable too. You have already been so generous, Eleanor said. I do not want you to think I am greedy or grasping. I do not think that. I could never think that, but I want you to understand your value. You are going to be my wife. You deserve to be treated with respect and generosity. That is what a husband should do for his wife. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. Not all men think that way. Then not all men are worthy of being husbands. Quinn's voice was firm. I am not perfect, Eleanor. I work long hours. I am sometimes tired and grumpy. I am stubborn about certain things. But I will always treat you with respect. I will always listen to you. And I will always make sure you have what you need." That evening at supper, Quinn announced to the ranch hands that the wedding would be in 2 weeks. The men congratulated them both, and Carlos offered to butcher a steer for the celebration. Sam volunteered to help set up tables and chairs. Joseph, who was shyer, simply smiled and nodded his approval. "We will invite the Wilsons and the other neighbors," Quinn said. "Make it a real party. It has been too long since this ranch had something to celebrate." Over the next 2 weeks, Eleanor settled into life at the ranch. She rose early to make breakfast for Quinn and the men, finding pleasure in cooking for appreciative eaters. She cleaned the house, which had been neglected by bachelor living, scrubbing floors and windows until everything gleamed. She washed curtains and aired out mattresses. She made preserves from wild plums that grew along the creek. She mended clothes for the men, her skilled needle making quick work of torn seams and missing buttons. Quinn watched her work with approval and insisted she take breaks in the heat of the afternoon. He brought her wildflowers he found on his rides, which she arranged in a jar on the kitchen table. In the evenings, they sat on the porch and talked, getting to know each other better. Sometimes Quinn read aloud from books and newspapers, and Eleanor was grateful to discover that he valued education and learning. She met Sarah Wilson when the Wilsons came to dinner one evening. Sarah was a warm, friendly woman about Eleanor's age, with blonde hair and a quick smile. She and Eleanor took to each other immediately, and Sarah promised to help with the wedding preparations. "I am so glad you are here," Sarah told Eleanor. "Quinn is a good man. He deserves someone to share his life with, and I will be happy to have another woman nearby. It gets lonely out here sometimes." 3 days after their trip to town, Quinn brought home 2 of Eleanor's new dresses from Mrs. Henderson. Eleanor tried them on in her room, delighted with how well they fit and how pretty they were. One was a blue calico with tiny white flowers, the other a cheerful yellow gingham. Both were practical for work but feminine and flattering. She wore the blue dress to supper that night, and the look on Quinn's face when she walked into the kitchen made her heart skip. "You look lovely," he said, his voice slightly rough. "That color suits you." "Thank you." Eleanor felt shy suddenly, aware of his gaze on her. After supper, as they washed dishes together as had become their habit, Quinn said, "I have something for you." He dried his hands and pulled a small box from his pocket. "I went back to town today to pick up your dresses, and I stopped at the Mercantile. This is not much, but I wanted you to have it." Eleanor opened the box to find a simple gold wedding band. It was not ornate, but it was solid and well made, and it gleamed in the lamplight. "Oh, Quinn, do you like it?" "I love it. It is perfect." She looked up at him, this man who had shown her such unexpected kindness. "You are perfect." Quinn smiled, his eyes warm. "Hardly perfect. But I am trying to be worthy of you." "You are worthy," Eleanor said softly. "More than worthy." They stood close in the kitchen, the moment stretching between them. Quinn reached up and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. Eleanor's breath caught. She had never been this close to a man before, had never felt this warmth spreading through her body, this awareness of his height and strength and the masculine scent of him. "Eleanor," Quinn said quietly, "I want you to know that I care about you. These past 2 weeks, getting to know you, watching you bring life to this house, it has meant more to me than I can say. I am not good with fancy words, but I want you to understand that this marriage is not just a practical arrangement for me. I genuinely care about you." "I care about you too," Eleanor whispered. "I did not expect to, not so quickly, but you have been so kind to me, so good to me. I feel safe with you. I feel valued. And I am beginning to feel something more than just gratitude." Quinn's hand cupped her cheek, his thumb stroking her skin gently. "That is all I could ask for. We have time to let our feelings grow. No rush, no pressure, just us getting to know each other, building something real." Eleanor nodded, unable to look away from his eyes. She wondered if he would kiss her, and part of her hoped he would, but he simply smiled and stepped back, giving her space. "We should finish these dishes," he said. "Big day tomorrow. Carlos and Sam are driving the cattle to the south pasture, and I need to ride out with them." The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah Wilson came over several times to help Eleanor with wedding plans. They decided on a simple ceremony on the porch of the ranch house, followed by a meal and dancing. Sarah helped Eleanor make decorations from paper and ribbons. Carlos butchered the steer as promised, and Eleanor worked on preparing side dishes that could be made ahead. Mrs. Henderson delivered the rest of Eleanor's dresses, including the burgundy dress that would serve as her wedding dress. It was the finest thing Eleanor had ever owned, made of soft wool with delicate black piping and buttons covered in matching fabric. With it, Mrs. Henderson had included a beautiful shawl in cream-colored silk. "Mr. Hayes said you should have something special for your wedding, Mrs. Henderson said with a smile. "The shawl is a gift from me. Every bride should have something beautiful." Eleanor held the silk shawl, feeling its softness, and tears filled her eyes. Thank you so much." The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful. Eleanor woke early, nervous and excited. Sarah arrived after breakfast to help her prepare, bringing wildflowers for a bouquet and for Eleanor's hair. "You are going to be a beautiful bride," Sarah said, helping Eleanor into the burgundy dress. "And Quinn is going to be speechless when he sees you." Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, showing off her figure, which had already begun to fill out with regular good meals. Her hair was arranged in soft curls, pinned up with flowers woven through. The silk shawl draped elegantly over her arms. She hardly recognized herself. Just a few weeks ago she had been a desperate woman in rags. Now she looked like a proper bride. Quinn waited on the porch, and when Eleanor emerged from the house, his expression made her heart flutter. He wore a new suit, dark and well-tailored, and he looked incredibly handsome. But it was the look in his eyes that took her breath away. He looked at her like she was precious, like she was beautiful, like she was everything. The preacher from Colfax, Reverend Matthews, stood ready to perform the ceremony. Neighbors had gathered, perhaps 20 people in total, all dressed in their Sunday best. The porch had been decorated with ribbons and flowers, and tables laden with food stood ready in the yard. Quinn took Eleanor's hands in his as the ceremony began. His hands were warm and strong, and Eleanor felt safe and certain standing beside him. The words of the ceremony washed over her, and when it came time for her to say her vows, her voice was clear and steady. "I, Eleanor Katherine Murphy, take you, Quinton Peter Hayes, to be my husband. I promise to love you, respect you, and stand beside you in all things, from this day forward." Quinn's voice was deep and sure as he made his vows. "I, Quinton Peter Hayes, take you, Eleanor Katherine Murphy, to be my wife. I promise to love you, cherish you, protect you, and honor you from this day forward for the rest of my life." He slipped the gold band onto her finger, and Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss your bride," the Reverend said with a smile. Quinn cupped Eleanor's face in his hands and kissed her gently. It was Eleanor's first kiss, and it was sweet and tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. The celebration that followed was joyful. The neighbors congratulated them warmly. The food was delicious. Someone brought out a fiddle, and there was dancing in the yard as the sun set in glorious colors. Quinn danced with Eleanor, holding her close, and she felt like she was floating. This man was her husband now. This ranch was her home. After so much struggle and hardship, she had found a place to belong. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Quinn pulled Eleanor aside. "Are you happy?" he asked quietly. "I am happier than I have been in years," Eleanor answered honestly. "This has been a perfect day." "It is not over yet," Quinn said with a small smile. "We still have our wedding night." Eleanor felt her cheeks warm, nerves fluttering in her stomach. She was innocent, knew only the basics of what happened between husband and wife. But she trusted Quinn. He had been nothing but gentle and respectful with her. After the last guests departed and the ranch hands retired to the bunkhouse, Quinn and Eleanor stood together in the kitchen, suddenly shy with each other. Quinn took her hand. "Eleanor, I want you to know that we can take this as slowly as you need. There is no rush. If you would rather wait, I will understand." Eleanor looked up at him, this good man who had given her so much. "I am nervous," she admitted, "but I want to be your wife in all ways. I trust you, Quinn." He led her to his bedroom, which was now theirs. Candles had been lit, casting a soft glow. Quinn kissed her again, deeper this time, and Eleanor felt heat bloom through her body. His hands were gentle as he helped her out of her dress, careful with the beautiful fabric. She had put on one of her new nightgowns earlier, and Quinn's breath caught when he saw her. "You are so beautiful," he murmured. What followed was tender and intimate, Quinn patient with her inexperience, taking his time, making sure she was comfortable. There was some pain at first, but Quinn was gentle, and soon the pain gave way to other sensations. Afterward, Eleanor lay in his arms, feeling closer to him than she had felt to anyone. This was intimacy, she realized. Not just the physical act, but the vulnerability, the trust, the tenderness. "Are you all right?" Quinn asked, stroking her hair. "I am more than all right," Eleanor said, snuggling closer. "I am exactly where I want to be." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the following weeks and months. Eleanor ran the household efficiently, taking pride in keeping everything organized and comfortable. She planted a garden near the house, growing vegetables and herbs. She learned from Sarah how to make cheese and butter. She became skilled at cooking for the ranch hands, who were effusively grateful for her good meals. Quinn treated her with consistent love and respect. He consulted her on ranch decisions, valuing her opinion. He brought her small gifts when he went to town. A book he thought she would like, some pretty ribbon, once a set of fine china dishes that made her cry with happiness. He continued to insist that she have nice things, that she take time for herself, that she know her value. In the evenings, they sat together on the porch or by the fire, talking about their days, making plans for the future. Quinn taught Eleanor to ride so she could explore the ranch with him. He showed her his favorite spots, the high meadow with the sweeping view, the bend in the creek where the fishing was good, the old cottonwood tree that was the biggest on the property. Eleanor fell in love with the land as deeply as she fell in love with her husband. She loved the vast skies, the dramatic sunsets, the way the air smelled after rain. She loved the sound of the cattle lowing, the horses nickering, the wind through the grass. This harsh, beautiful country had become home, and she was deeply in love with Quinn. What had started as gratitude and attraction had grown into something profound. She loved his strength and his gentleness. She loved how hard he worked, how he treated everyone with fairness. She loved his integrity, his humor, his intelligence. She loved the way he looked at her like she was the most important thing in his world. She loved falling asleep in his arms and waking up beside him. She loved the life they were building together. Winter came, and Eleanor experienced her first southwestern winter, which was milder than Boston but still cold. She and Quinn spent long evenings by the fire, and on particularly cold nights, they stayed in bed late, making love and talking and laughing together. Eleanor had never been so happy. In the spring, Eleanor realized she was pregnant. She told Quinn one evening after supper, nervous about how he would react. They had not specifically discussed children, though she assumed he wanted them. Quinn's face lit up with joy. "A baby! We are going to have a baby." He swept her into his arms, laughing. "Eleanor, this is wonderful news. You are happy?" Eleanor asked, relief flooding through her. "Happy? I am thrilled. A child, our child. I cannot believe it." He kissed her thoroughly, then gently placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "When?" "I think late fall, maybe early November. We have to take good care of you. You should rest more, not work so hard." "I am pregnant, not ill," Eleanor said, laughing. "But I will be careful, I promise." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Eleanor felt well most of the time, though tired in the early months. Quinn was attentive and protective, sometimes overly so, which made Eleanor laugh. Sarah was a wonderful source of advice and support, having been through it herself 3 times. In November, Eleanor gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The labor was long and difficult, with Sarah and Mrs. Henderson attending her, but when she finally held her son in her arms, Eleanor felt overwhelming love. Quinn, who had been pacing anxiously outside, came in the moment he was allowed. He looked at his son with wonder and tears in his eyes. "He is perfect," Quinn whispered. "You are amazing, Eleanor. Thank you for this gift." They named the boy Thomas Peter Hayes, after Eleanor's father and Quinn's middle name. Little Thomas had dark hair like his father and blue eyes that Quinn swore were the exact shade of Eleanor's. Fatherhood suited Quinn. He was gentle and patient with the baby, happy to hold him or rock him to sleep. Eleanor often found them together, Quinn talking softly to Thomas about the ranch, the horses, the things they would do together when Thomas was older. The years passed in happiness. Thomas grew into a sturdy, cheerful toddler. When he was 2, Eleanor gave birth to a daughter they named Grace Catherine, after Eleanor's mother. Grace had Quinn's honey-colored eyes and Eleanor's lighter brown hair. 2 years later, another son arrived, James Quinn, who looked like a perfect blend of both his parents. The ranch prospered. Quinn expanded his herd and built a new barn. Eleanor's garden flourished, and she learned to preserve enough food to last through the winters. They hired another ranch hand, a young man named Daniel who was eager to learn. The house rang with the sounds of children playing, and Eleanor marveled at how full her life had become. She thought sometimes of the desperate woman who had arrived in Colfax in rags, terrified of the future. That woman seemed like someone from another lifetime. Eleanor was confident now, secure in her place, deeply loved and loving in return. Quinn remained devoted to her. He still brought her gifts, still told her she was beautiful, still treated her like she was precious. Their physical relationship had only deepened over the years, the passion between them still strong. But it was more than passion. It was partnership, friendship, deep abiding love. One evening when Thomas was 7, Grace was 5, and James was 3, Eleanor stood on the porch watching Quinn teach Thomas how to rope a fence post. Grace was nearby, playing with her doll, and James was toddling around collecting rocks. The sun was setting in brilliant oranges and purples, and the air was soft with approaching spring. Quinn finished the lesson and walked over to Eleanor, slipping his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I am thinking about how blessed I am," Eleanor said, leaning into him. "Do you remember the day I arrived? I was so frightened, so ashamed of how I looked. I remember. I also remember thinking that you were the bravest person I had ever seen, stepping off that stagecoach with your head held high despite everything. You changed my life that day," Eleanor said softly. "You dressed me in silk and told me I deserved the best. No one had ever treated me that way before. You made me believe in myself again." Quinn turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "You deserved it. You deserved all of it. You are remarkable, Eleanor. You always were. I just helped you see it." "I love you," Eleanor said. "More than I can ever express." "I love you too," Quinn said. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our children, this life we have built together. It is everything I ever wanted and more." He kissed her tenderly as the children played nearby and the sun painted the sky in gold. Eleanor thought about the journey that had brought her here, the hardships and the struggles, and how it had all led to this moment. She was exactly where she was meant to be. As the children grew, Eleanor and Quinn continued to thrive. Thomas showed an early aptitude for ranching, following his father everywhere, eager to learn. Grace was spirited and imaginative, always creating elaborate games and stories. James was thoughtful and quiet, content to observe and think. Eleanor loved each of them fiercely, marveling at their unique personalities. The ranch hands had become like family. Carlos, now quite elderly, had retired from the harder work but still lived in the bunkhouse and helped with lighter tasks. Sam had married a girl from town and built a small house on the property. Joseph had moved on to start his own small ranch with Quinn's help and blessing. Daniel had matured into a skilled cowhand and Quinn's right-hand man. Sarah Wilson remained Eleanor's closest friend. They visited often, their children playing together. Sarah's husband Tom and Quinn had become good friends as well, helping each other with ranch work and supporting each other through hard times. When Thomas was 10, Grace 8, and James 6, Eleanor discovered she was pregnant again. This pregnancy was more difficult than the others, and Eleanor felt her age. She was now 34, not old but not young either. Quinn was protective and worried, insisting she rest and not overwork herself. This time, Eleanor gave birth to twin girls, much to everyone's surprise. They named them Rose Eleanor and Lily Catherine. The birth was challenging, and Eleanor needed weeks to fully recover, but the twin girls were healthy and beautiful. Thomas, Grace, and James were fascinated by their new sisters and wanted to help with everything. Quinn was besotted with his daughters. Eleanor often found him with a twin in each arm, talking to them in a gentle voice, promising them the world. He doted on all the children, but had a special tenderness for his daughters. "5 children," Eleanor said one evening, watching Quinn rock one of the twins while Grace leaned against him and he told James a story. "We have been truly blessed." "We have," Quinn agreed. "Sometimes I cannot believe this is my life. A beautiful wife, 5 healthy children, a successful ranch. I am the luckiest man alive." Life was not without challenges. There were harsh winters when feed was scarce. There was the year of drought when they worried about the creek drying up. There were illnesses and injuries, the normal dangers of ranch life. When James was 8, he broke his arm falling from a horse, and Eleanor had never seen Quinn so scared. But they faced everything together, supporting each other, their love steady and strong. The children grew, each finding their path. Thomas was clearly going to take over the ranch someday. He had Quinn's love of the land and his steadiness. Grace shocked everyone by expressing interest in becoming a teacher. Quinn and Eleanor supported her ambition, making arrangements for her to attend the school in Santa Fe when she was old enough. James showed an interest in animals and healing, and they began to think he might become a veterinarian. The twins were still young, but they were bright and curious, always asking questions and exploring. Eleanor had learned to be a skilled horsewoman, and she and Quinn sometimes took long rides together when the children were being watched by Sarah or one of the ranch hands. These rides were precious time together, reminding them of their early days, talking and laughing and simply being together. One evening, as they returned from such a ride, Quinn pulled his horse to a stop at the top of the rise overlooking the ranch. Eleanor stopped beside him. The sun was setting, painting everything in golden light. Below them, the ranch spread out, the house, the barns, the corrals, the creek winding through the property. Smoke rose from the chimney, and they could see the children playing in the yard. "You ever regret it?" Quinn asked. "Leaving Boston, coming out here, marrying a stranger?" Eleanor looked at him in surprise. "Regret it? Never, not for one moment. This is the life I was meant to have. You are the man I was meant to marry. Our children are the greatest blessing I could imagine. How could I possibly regret any of it?" Quinn smiled, relief evident in his expression. "I worry sometimes that maybe you miss the city, the culture, the society." "I do not miss any of it," Eleanor said firmly. "I have everything I need right here. I have a husband who loves me, who has always treated me with respect and kindness. I have children who bring me joy every single day. I have a home that I helped build, a life that is meaningful and full. What more could I possibly want?" "I love you," Quinn said. "I have loved you since the day you stepped off that stagecoach. When I saw you standing there in those torn clothes, so brave and proud despite everything, I knew you were special. Getting to know you, falling in love with you, building this life with you, it has been the greatest privilege of my life." "And loving you has been mine," Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved me, Quinn. You gave me back my dignity, my self-respect. You showed me what love really means. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose. I will never be able to repay you for all you have given me." "You repay me every day," Quinn said. "Every morning when I wake up beside you, every evening when we sit together, every moment we share. You are my partner, my love, my best friend. You make everything better just by being yourself." They rode down to the house together, hands linked between their horses, hearts full. The children ran to greet them, and Eleanor dismounted to receive enthusiastic hugs. Quinn lifted the twins, one in each arm, making them giggle. Thomas took the horses to the barn. Grace chattered about what she and James had been doing. James showed Eleanor a bird nest he had found. That night, after the children were tucked into bed, Eleanor and Quinn sat on the porch in their favorite chairs, holding hands as they looked at the stars. The night was cool and clear, and coyotes sang in the distance. "You remember our wedding night?" Quinn asked. "How nervous you were," Eleanor laughed. "I was terrified. I had no idea what to expect. You were so brave. You are always so brave. Only because I knew I could trust you. You have never given me reason not to." Quinn raised her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I hope I never do. You are my world, Eleanor. You and our children. Everything I do is for you." "I know," Eleanor said softly, "and I feel the same way about you." As the years continued to pass, the children grew into young adults. Thomas, at 18, was fully involved in running the ranch. He was a younger version of Quinn, steady and hardworking, with a good head for business. He had recently started courting a girl from town, a sweet young woman named Martha, and Quinn and Eleanor suspected an engagement would come soon. Grace, at 16, had blossomed into a beautiful and intelligent young woman. She had indeed gone to the school in Santa Fe and was excelling in her studies. She came home for holidays and summers, full of stories and ideas. Eleanor was so proud of her daughter's independence and intelligence. James, at 14, was apprenticing with the veterinarian in Colfax, learning about animal medicine. He had a gentle way with creatures that made him naturally suited to the work. The twins, now 8, were still young but showing signs of their own strong personalities. Rose was adventurous and bold, while Lily was quieter and more thoughtful. Eleanor and Quinn, now in their 40s, looked at their life with satisfaction. The ranch was successful and stable. Their children were healthy and pursuing their own paths. Their love had only deepened over the years. One anniversary, Quinn gave Eleanor a gift that made her cry. It was a beautiful silk dress in a deep sapphire blue, the finest thing she had ever seen. With it was a note that read, "You arrived in rags, I dressed you in silk, but you were always deserving of the best. Thank you for 20 years of happiness. I love you." Eleanor held the dress and the note, tears streaming down her face. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" "I just tell you the truth," Quinn said, pulling her into his arms. "You do deserve the best. You have always deserved the best. I am just grateful I get to be the one to give it to you. You have given me so much more than material things," Eleanor said. "You have given me love, respect, partnership. You have given me confidence in myself. You have given me a beautiful family and a wonderful life. I cannot imagine my life without you." "You will never have to," Quinn promised. "I am yours for as long as I live." They renewed their vows that anniversary, standing on the same porch where they had married 20 years before, surrounded by their children and friends. Thomas was Quinn's best man, and Grace stood beside Eleanor. It was a beautiful ceremony, a reaffirmation of their love and commitment. "I, Eleanor Katherine Hayes, renew my vows to you, Quinton Peter Hayes. 20 years ago I promised to love you, respect you, and stand beside you. I have kept that promise and I make it again now. You are my heart, my home, my greatest blessing. I will love you for the rest of my life. I, Quinton Peter Hayes, renew my vows to you, Eleanor Katherine Hayes. 20 years ago I promised to love you, cherish you, protect you, and honor you. You have made every day of those 20 years a joy. You are more than I ever dreamed of, and I am grateful every day that you chose me. I will love you forever." As they kissed, their children cheered, and Eleanor felt like her heart would burst with happiness. This was what she had hoped for when she answered Quinn's advertisement all those years ago, though she had never dared believe she would find it. True love, real partnership, a life of meaning and purpose. The years continued to unfold in blessing. Thomas married Martha, and they moved into a house Quinn built for them on the ranch. Thomas took over more and more of the ranch management, allowing Quinn to slow down a bit, though he still loved being involved in the work. Within 2 years, Thomas and Martha had a son, making Eleanor and Quinn grandparents for the first time. Holding her grandson, Eleanor was overwhelmed with emotion. She thought of her own mother, who had died too young, who had never seen Eleanor's happiness. She thought of her father, who had worked so hard to provide for his family. She wished they could have seen this, could have known how everything turned out. "They would be so proud of you," Quinn said softly, understanding her thoughts as he often did. "Your parents. They would see the woman you have become, the family you have built, and they would be so proud." "I hope so," Eleanor whispered, tears in her eyes. "I hope they know I am happy." Grace graduated from her school and did indeed become a teacher, accepting a position in Colfax. She was an excellent teacher, inspiring her students. She eventually married a lawyer named Robert, a kind and intelligent man who adored her. Eleanor and Quinn were delighted to see their daughter so happy. James became a skilled veterinarian, working alongside the older veterinarian and eventually taking over his practice when he retired. James married a rancher's daughter named Anne, who shared his love of animals. They settled in Colfax, close enough to visit often. The twins grew into beautiful young women, different in temperament but close as only twins can be. Rose married a cowboy and moved to Colorado with him. Lily surprised everyone by expressing interest in medicine and began training as a nurse, one of the first in the territory. Eleanor and Quinn, now in their 60s, had become the respected elders of the community. They had 10 grandchildren between their children, and the ranch house was often filled with the laughter and chaos of family gatherings. Quinn had gradually turned over most of the ranch work to Thomas, though he still rode out most days, unable to fully give up the work he loved. Eleanor's hair had turned silver, and there were lines around her eyes and mouth from years of smiling. Quinn's hair was also gray, and his body showed the effects of years of hard physical labor. But to each other, they were still the young people who had fallen in love. Their physical relationship had evolved but remained intimate and loving. They still held hands, still stole kisses, still looked at each other with love and desire. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset as they had done thousands of times before, Eleanor said, "We have had a good life, have we not?" "The best," Quinn agreed. "Better than I ever imagined possible." "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Eleanor asked. "You told me I deserved the best." "I remember. It was true then, and it is true now." "You gave me the best," Eleanor said. "Not silk dresses or material things, though those were lovely. You gave me yourself. Your love, your respect, your partnership. You gave me a family and a home. You gave me a life worth living. That is the best gift anyone could receive." Quinn lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it, a gesture he had made thousands of times over the years. "You gave me the same, Eleanor. You took a lonely rancher and made him a husband, a father, a grandfather. You filled my house with love and laughter. You were my partner in everything. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "I love you," Eleanor said. "I will always love you." "And I will always love you," Quinn replied, "in this life and whatever comes after." They sat together as the sun set in brilliant colors. Two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life of love and purpose, who had created a legacy that would continue through their children and grandchildren. Eleanor thought of the frightened woman in rags who had stepped off the stage coach so many years ago, never imagining the happiness that awaited her. She thought of Quinn's kindness, his generosity, his love that had transformed her life. She thought of silk dresses and gold rings, of babies and grandchildren, of sunsets and star-filled nights, of hard work and great joy, of laughter and tears and everything that made up a full life. She thought of love, real and deep and lasting, the kind of love that sustained through hardship and celebrated in happiness. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Eleanor squeezed Quinn's hand, and he squeezed back. No words were needed. They understood each other perfectly, as they had for all these years. They had found their happy ending, and it was more beautiful than any fairy tale. The ranch would continue after them, passed down to Thomas and eventually to his children. The legacy they had built was not just in land and cattle, but in family and love, in children who knew they were valued, in grandchildren who were growing up secure and happy. It was in the example they had set of partnership and respect, of facing life's challenges together, of building something lasting and good. Eleanor had arrived in rags, poor and desperate and afraid. Quinn had dressed her in silk and told her she deserved the best. But the real gift was not the silk or the material comfort, though those were appreciated. The real gift was the life they had built together, the love that had grown and deepened over the years, the family they had raised, the home they had created. That was the best. That was everything. As they finally rose to go inside, Quinn paused to kiss Eleanor's forehead tenderly. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Eleanor asked. "For saying yes. For taking a chance on a stranger. For building this life with me. For being exactly who you are, for everything." Eleanor smiled, her eyes shining with love. "Thank you for seeing me. For seeing past the rags to the person underneath. For believing I deserved the best and then spending our life together proving it. You are my greatest blessing, Quinton Peter Hayes." Hand in hand, they walked into their home, surrounded by the evidence of their life together, the photographs on the walls, the furniture they had chosen together, the dishes from countless family meals. Outside, the ranch they had built continued under the stars, a testament to hard work and love. Their story had begun with a mail-order bride arriving in rags and a rancher who saw her worth. It had become so much more, a love story that spanned decades, that created a family, that built a legacy. It was proof that sometimes the best things in life come when you are brave enough to take a chance, kind enough to see past surface appearances, and wise enough to recognize true value when you find it. And as they prepared for bed that night, having spent another perfect day together, Eleanor reflected that she had indeed received the best. Not because Quinn had given her material things, though he had been generous, but because he had given her himself, fully and completely, for all the years of their marriage. He had been her partner, her lover, her best friend, her shelter in storms and her companion in joy. He had been exactly what she needed, and she had been the same for him. That was the real silk, the real treasure, the real best. It was love, true and deep and lasting. It was partnership and respect and understanding. It was building a life together, raising children together, growing old together. It was choosing each other every day, through good times and hard times, through youth and middle age and into their golden years. Eleanor fell asleep that night in Quinn's arms, as she had for decades, feeling safe and loved and blessed beyond measure. She had found her home, her heart, her happiness. She had found everything she needed in this ranch in New Mexico, in this man who had believed in her worth from the very beginning. Their love story would continue for many more years, until they were both very old, and even then their love would remain strong. They would leave this world as they had lived in it together, their hands linked, their love undiminished. And their legacy would live on in their children and grandchildren, in the ranch they had built, in the community they had served, in the example they had set of what true love really meant. The mail-order bride who arrived in rags had indeed received silk, and so much more. She had received love, respect, partnership, family, and a life rich with meaning and joy. The rancher who had dressed her in silk and told her she deserved the best had spent their life together proving it, showing her every day through his words and actions that she was valued, cherished, and loved. And that was the happiest ending of all.